Welcome back to N's Notebook. Today, we're diving into a really interesting book called EMF D. Now, its core argument is that all the man-made electromagnetic fields, EMFs, from our modern tech might be a huge overlooked health risk. So we're going to break down what it claims, the science it points to, and the solutions it offers. And we'll be doing all that with slides that come straight from the book's arguments. Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with what the book calls the invisible experiment. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how it claims EMFs actually cause damage. After that, we'll tackle the specific dangers it points to with 5G. And we'll wrap up with its advice on how to cut down your exposure and maybe even repair some of that damage. All right, first up, Section 1, the invisible experiment. The book really opens with a bang, basically saying we're all part of this massive global health experiment, whether we like it or not. And this one quote right here pretty much sums up the entire book's argument. The idea is that our exposure to all this wireless tech, radiation, is everywhere, you can't really escape it, and, critically, it hasn't been tested for long-term safety. It definitely sets a pretty dramatic stage, doesn't it? So to really grasp the scale of this so-called experiment, the book hits you with this number. It's just mind-boggling. It's arguing that our exposure today isn't just a little bit higher than our great-grandparents, it's a quintillion times higher. The whole point is that this is a change on a scale that our biology has just never, ever had to deal with before. And here, the author draws this really powerful parallel that you see throughout the book. It's basically comparing the alleged playbook of the wireless industry to big tobacco's. The argument is that it's a similar strategy. Create doubt. Fund a bunch of conflicting studies to muddy the waters, confuse the public, and ultimately delay any kind of real regulation. Okay, on to Section 2. So how does the book claim this damage is actually happening? Well, this is where it gets into the science, and it puts forward a central theory that's pretty different from the official safety standards. So it really boils down to this distinction between two types of radiation. You see, the current safety rules are mostly based on the idea that non-ionizing radiation, the kind from our phones and Wi-Fi, is only harmful if it's strong enough to literally heat our tissue. But the book says, nope, that's a huge blind spot. It argues the damage is happening through a completely different, much more subtle biological pathway. And this is the core mechanism the book lays out. Think of it like a chain reaction. The EMF signal acts like the wrong key trying to open a lock on our cells. But here's the thing. It works. It jiggles the lock, which is something called a voltage-gated calcium channel, and forces it open. When that happens, a flood of excess calcium rushes into the cell. This calcium flood then triggers the creation of this really nasty, destructive molecule called peroxynitrite. And that is what the book blames for causing oxidative stress, the thing that ultimately damages our cells, our mitochondria, and even our DNA. All right, Section 3. So taking that theory of how damage happens, the book applies it directly to the rollout of 5G, and it frames 5G as, well, a massive escalation of the whole problem. The book's concerns here aren't just about getting faster internet. The argument is that 5G is being layered on top of all the existing networks, 2G, 3G, 4G, it's not replacing them. This means millions of new, smaller antennas, often way closer to where we live and work. It uses new, higher frequencies that the book claims haven't been tested for long-term safety. And with plans for satellites blanketing the Earth, it basically creates an environment that's pretty much impossible to opt out of. Okay, so after laying out this pretty heavy problem, the book shifts gears and starts talking about solutions. Let's move on to Section 4 and look at the practical advice it gives for cutting back on your EMF exposure. The book's first line of defense is a pretty simple swap this for that strategy. The main idea here is to replace your wireless connections with old-fashioned physical wires whenever you can. It really emphasizes focusing on the devices you use most and that are closest to your body, things like your Wi-Fi router, your phone, and even your keyboard and mouse. But it's not just about swapping out your gear. The book also really focuses on changing your personal habits. And the most important principle is super simple. Distance is your friend. The power of this radiation drops off like crazy with just a little bit of distance. So small changes like using speakerphone instead of holding the phone to your head or just not sleeping with it on your nightstand are framed as really effective, easy wins. And that brings us to our final section, number 5, repairing the damage. So beyond just trying to lower your exposure, the book gets into strategies to help your body heal from the oxidative stress it claims has already happened. Now, the book's core message on healing is really, really clear. You can't just pop a few supplements and fix the problem if you're still living in a high EMF environment. The absolute foundational first step, according to the author, is always to reduce your exposure. You have to stop the ongoing assault so your body actually has a fighting chance to repair itself. Okay, so once that foundation is in place, the book goes into several nutritional strategies. Now, just a heads up, this isn't medical advice, of course, but it's an overview of what the author recommends to support the body's natural repair systems. For instance, it talks about things like magnesium, which it calls a natural calcium channel blocker, and it recommends various nutrients and foods that it claims can help with cellular repair. And that brings us right to the end of our breakdown, leaving us with this really provocative question to think about. In a world that's becoming more and more saturated with wireless signals, is managing this invisible part of our environment the next big frontier of personal health? The book EMF D definitely makes the case that this isn't some fringe issue, but actually a central, critical piece of modern self-care. If this topic has captured your interest and you'd like to dive deeper, the book is called EMF D by Dr. Joseph Mercola.